It's moving. Let's keep it that way. Northbound 65 up through Madison, just trying to get up past Rivergate Parkway. Hey, when you need dependable towing for a car or big truck here in Middle Tennessee, call the professionals. STR Towing and Recovery, strtow.com. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
This is Pastor Nikki Ajapong, lead pastor of Holy Hill Chapel.
Here are sermons on WGNS Sunday night at 7:30.
Our sermons are loaded with the keys of the kingdom. If you don't have the keys, you'll be stranded.
Visit holyhillchapeltn.org to hear our podcast.
Rutherford weather.
Partly cloudy skies tonight with a low temperature of 21 degrees. Tuesday sunny with a high around 37. Wednesday sunny and 49. I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the WGNS Rutherford Weather Center. Right now, it's 35.
We do it your way at Sir Pizza.
Order a royal feast or create your own pizza online now at sirpizzatn.com. Carry out and delivery for dinner tonight at sirpizzatn.com.
We're the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com.
From the first pitch to the final buzzer, this is where the conversation starts. All sports talk on WGNS and Big G TV, covering the Preps, MTSU, news from Tennessee and nationwide. Now, here's All Sports Talk on the Good Neighbor Network.
Afternoon, Dick Palmer with you, and I've got a very interesting guest we're going to be talking with for the next few minutes. Good friend of mine, go back a few years with Ed Given. Ed is retired. He is a former sports writer in Nashville, former sports information director at two universities that I know that most of you will be familiar with, so we'll get into all that a little bit later on, but Mr. G, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be here, or anywhere for that matter.
Well, I could say the same thing. You are a native of Tennessee, of West Tennessee, I understand.
Far West Tennessee, at Ripley, about 10 miles from the Mississippi River.
Yeah. And growing up there in West Tennessee, I would say rural West Tennessee. Would that be a good choice of words?
Oh no, we had a city of about 3,500 people.
Probably a little bit bigger now, but growing up there, you had an early interest in sports, and I just wondered how that happened to develop and later turned into your life's work.
Well, my dad was a tremendous football fan. He never missed a game that he could get to, and I usually went with him. And then the first organized sports I played was baseball with not really a little league, but a league that was organized in West Tennessee, about 6 towns by businessmen in those towns.
So that was before Little League came into existence, and was probably better run than some of the programs that I've been associated with, but that's another story. But so baseball was really your first love.
Yes, I enjoyed playing baseball better than anything else, but watching football and basketball was more fun to me. But not that I turned down a good baseball game, but it was the most fun sport. Fred Russell told me one time, he said it's the only sport that people like to practice. He said you never saw anybody that didn't want to grab a bat and jump in the hitting cage.
So, and in high school then, after you played youth baseball, did you get into some other sports?
Oh, yeah, I played football, basketball, and even fiddled around with track a little bit my senior year. So if it was a sport, I was going to get involved.
I expect your school was probably like a lot of the high schools back in that time that did not really have organized baseball in high school. Is that correct?
Well, we had baseball. We played. We had district and regional baseball under TSSAA.
Okay. So, moving on from that, and which sport did you feel that you liked best, or were more capable playing?
Baseball and basketball. My junior year in high school, that was the year that UT first went to the College World Series. And the coach came by, I don't remember whether it was on the way to to the World Series or on the way back, but he came by and saw us play. And he said that if I got bigger the next year and could throw the second better as a catcher, that he'd have a scholarship for me. The only trouble was that he and General Leland got crosswise about something my senior year, and so he was let go. So I walked on at Tennessee as a freshman, made the team, did not play catcher because they had a senior who was a catcher, and I played right field all season except for one or two games I had to play somewhere else, but I played outfield for the 2 years that I was at UT.
Left-handed hitter, right-handed hitter?
Right-handed hitter, right-handed thrower. Although, if I had continued playing after college, I probably would have become a switch hitter.
Because switch hitters had a little bit of an advantage when facing the opposing pitcher.
Well, they do, and the reason that my average fell off was I was going blind and didn't know it. I was getting progressively more nearsighted, but I didn't know it until about 3 years out of college when I was working at the Banner in Nashville.
And how did you find that out?
Well, if you recall, the old fellow who ran the PA at Sulphurdale also did the PA with the stock car races at the fairgrounds. So on the nights that he had a stock car race, I did the PA at Sulphurdale. And I caught myself having to squint to read the other games at the bottom of the scoreboard. And that's the first time I realized, hey, something's not right here.
Well, not only did you play baseball, you also played some basketball up there, didn't you, at Tennessee?
Well, I redshirted my sophomore year because I thought if I could help the basketball team, maybe that would help me get on a scholarship. And so they organized, not for me, but they started a junior varsity team. And I tried out for that and made it. We played about 4 games, and then they said, well, we're just going to do away with that. So they let everybody go except myself and another guy named Lonnie Hersbron, who was on the football team, later played with the Redskins. And we went up and worked out every day with the varsity, but we didn't dress for games.
And how would you rate your experience up on the hill?
Well, loved it. But my sophomore year in the spring, my mother was diagnosed with leukemia. I was 420 miles away from home on 2-lane roads, and I had to get back closer. So after my sophomore year, I transferred to Union University in Jackson.
And resumed your athletic activities there?
Yes, played both basketball and baseball there. Oddly enough, the year I had to sit out after transferring, I coached Union's baseball team, and we won our division of the old league that we were in at that time with Belmont, Lipscomb, and all the other smaller universities across the state.
So you were not really a player coach, but you were a player who was named the coach, I guess. You didn't play that year, did you?
No, I guess I was a student coach.
Who was the baseball coach when you had to relinquish that?
Well, Jack came in at my second year. Jack Russell came in the summertime, and there was another guy from Ripley, Johnny Rose, who was already on scholarship at Union Combination Basketball, Baseball. So he said, I'm going to Jackson tomorrow to meet the new coach. Do you want to go? And I said, yes, I need to talk to that man. Because the former coach had promised me a scholarship after I became eligible. But again, he was gone. So I had to talk to Russell, and he said, I believe what you tell me and so forth, but he said, I don't know you or whatever. He said, what do you expect me to do? And I said, well, let me put it this way. I said, when you have tryouts, I said, when you see I can help your basketball team, I said, I want to go on scholarship that day. And I said, the minute you see I can't help you, let me know, and I'm gone working so I can pay my way through school. And he said, I don't know what could be fairer than that. And Union was building a new gymnasium at that time, so we had to work out on tennis courts for the first 2 weeks, running drills and et cetera, et cetera. And he called me in the middle of the second week, and I signed scholarship.
So when I was at Union, when I was broadcasting in Jackson, Jack Russell was basketball and baseball coach at that time. He gave up both positions, but I worked with him for a couple of years. He was a character. He was a character in his own right. And I'll give you an example. There was a player at Belmont that time named Robert Barnes, who was leading the country in scoring. Right. The first time we played him in Jackson, pretty early in the season, a freshman we had tried to guard him, and he scored 44 points. So we got to see them play in a Christmas tournament at David Lipscomb, although we didn't play against them. But I watched him and figured out what he liked to do. And when we played them later on in Nashville, I told Jack, I said, let me guard Barnes. And he said, oh, you think you can hold him down? I said, well, I believe I can hold him under 44. So he let me try, and Barnes scored 11 points. So I expect he listened to you a little closer after that. I don't know about that. He didn't change much. Okay. So when you finished school, and did you have any idea what you wanted to do after school? Maybe try your hand at baseball or what? Well, I had 3 offers from Baltimore, St. Louis, and San Francisco Giants. The Giants was the best offer at $400 a month, $4,000 to sign to a Class B contract. But there was no money in baseball in those days. $400 a month was not bad in 1957, but you only got paid for the 6 months of the season. You had to find something else to do the rest of the year. And my wife and I had already been married for a year, and our first child was on the way, and I said, I don't think so. So I had been working for the Jackson Sun as a sports writer while I was in school, and a job came open at the Banner in Nashville. I interviewed for it, and they were foolish enough to let me have the job. So you got to work for the legendary Fred Russell. Yes, and I was grateful for that all my life. He's one of the best that's ever been. Not only his own ability as a sports writer, but he was an ideal boss. He took you in, told you what your responsibilities were. You were your own boss until you messed things up, and then he would get you straightened out. But he turned you loose and didn't stay in your hair all the time, tell you what to do. He might tell you how to do it and give you a few pointers now and then, but just an ideal man to work for. Just let you alone, let you do your job. Yes. And did he make assignments, or was that somebody else's responsibility? We had responsibilities for what we did, but I was never told what game to cover, where to go, how to do a feature, except on rare occasions when something came up that he knew had to be done, and it fell to my lot to do it. And I have also heard that he was a practical joker of the utmost degree. And were you ever the butt of any of those jokes?
No, but I was a tool that he used a few times. Our fans here will remember Jim Ragland, who played at Tennessee Tech. He also played at Cookeville High School. And when he finished his senior season at Cookeville, he signed a scholarship with both Vanderbilt and Ole Miss. And Freddie knew what was going on, and he knew the SEC was about to get into it. And so the SEC commissioner at that time was Tonto Coleman. And so he set it up with the telephone operator at Vanderbilt for me to pretend to be Tonto Coleman and call one of the assistant coaches and stir things up. And we did. And Freddie never set up a practical joke if all the circumstances didn't lead to what was going on. And he knew that Coleman was coming to Nashville for a meeting that weekend. So I had to call the assistant coach and tell him I was coming and needed to talk to him very quickly about the situation with Ragland.
We're just about out of time on this segment. I want to finish that story when we come back. I'm talking with Ed Gibbon, who is a native of Tennessee, living in Murfreesboro, and retired sports information and newspaper guy. We'll be back. All Sports Talk continues after this on WGNS.
At State Farm, when home and auto work as a team, you score and save money. I'm State Farm agent Andy Wama. Give me a call at 615-890-0850 and let's work together to win big by saving money on home and auto. With the service you get from State Farm, you might think our car insurance costs more. I'm State Farm agent Andy Wama. Give me a call at 615-890-0850 and let me show you with discounts up to 40%. You may find it even costs less.
Clark's Auction Company will get you top dollar for your property.
Auctions are easy, fast, and profitable.
You have a staff that comes to your home. They walk you through it. It's been my experience. What I thought I should get from my home, I got much more for it.
Call Parks Auction and Realty or visit parksauction.com.
Clark's Auction Company will get you top dollar for your property.
Clark's Auction Company, committed to auction excellence.
Sold it to you, 27.5.
This is Peter Demas, inviting you to enjoy a meal with our family at Demas's Restaurant. With cold and flu season here, nothing helps my family more than having the Demas's baked chicken and rice soup. It was a soup that was created by my grandmother, and we not only sell it by the cup, but we also sell it by the quart, by the half gallon, and by the gallon. So stop by anytime today and bring soup to your family that may be sick, or a friend that's sick, or just to enjoy it just because it tastes so good. Demas's Restaurant.
When illness or injury turns everyday moments into uphill battles, there are medical professionals who step in with skill, compassion, and unwavering dedication. My name is Joey P. I'm CEO of Murfreesboro Medical Clinic, and we are proud to highlight this month's MMC Heart for Healing recipient.
A grateful patient wrote about a 3-week stay at Ascension St. Thomas Rutherford Hospital. When they were finally allowed to shower, Nurse Michaela Easterwood went above and beyond, washing and styling their hair with such care that Mom had one less worry. Even when she wasn't assigned to them, Michaela used her own breaks to stop by, check in, and bring comfort. Her kindness restored dignity and hope. That's why Michaela Easterwood is our Heart for Healing.
If a doctor, nurse, or other medical professional has made a difference in your life, tell your good neighbor station, WGNS. Nominate them for the MMC Heart for Healing Award and help us recognize the medical heroes in our community. Compassion deserves recognition, and healing begins with the heart.
Sign-ups are going on right now for First Shot's Winter Basketball League in Rutherford County. Coach Andy Herzer guides kids to sharpen basketball skills and build teamwork through exciting clinics and games. Since 2003, First Shot has empowered youth to grow in mind, spirit, and body. Don't miss out. Join the fun and develop lifelong skills. Visit FirstShotTN.org today and register for the Winter Basketball League. That's FirstShotTN.org.
Good afternoon. There's a couple of accidents getting some attention out here, but for the most part, it's actually moving better than it normally would be. On 40 going eastbound as you head out through the Donaldson area, pushing on out into Wilson County. 65 heavy, but it's moving. Let's keep it that way. Northbound 65 up through Madison, just trying to get up past Rivergate Parkway. Hey, when you need dependable towing for a car or big truck here in Middle Tennessee, call the professionals. STR Towing and Recovery, strtow.com. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
It's all sports talk from the Good Neighbor Network, FM 1019, 100.5, AM 1450, wgnsradio.com, and Big G TV.
Sports talk on this Monday. My guest is Ed Gibbon, who is a retired sports information director and newspaper guy. And we were talking about your days at the Nashville Banner with Fred Russell and his penance for pulling practical jokes on people, and right in the middle of that story when he had you pretending to be the Southeastern Conference commissioner, and I want you to go ahead and kind of put a lid on that.
Well, I talked to the operator, and she was in on it because Fred had talked to her before. And she put me through to the assistant coach that was involved, and I explained in my best imitation of Tonto Coleman's voice, which was Southern and a drawl, and so I didn't have to change too much. And he started stuttering and stammering, and he said, "Oh, I don't know much about that. I so-and-so," and he named another assistant coach. I said, "Well, let me talk to him." And so he switched me over. I went through the whole thing, and he said, "I don't know why he told you to come over here to me." He says, "He's the one that signed him." And Fred was listening on the other line. He was dying laughing. And we never told anybody the better when it was all over. They had to find out for themselves.
Wow. So I wonder if he got any retaliation for that from those schools.
No, people didn't cross him about much.
Okay, so how long were you at the Banner?
A little over 5 years.
Yeah. So it was still in operation when you left?
Oh, yeah, for several years after I left.
And what precipitated you getting out of newspaper work?
Well, to be honest with you, I got tired of going to games, and I wasn't supposed to care who won. I missed the competition more than anything. And a few years later, when another guy from my hometown, Jim Hickman, was in the major leagues, and I found out that he was about to retire. And I told him when we went bird hunting that winter before he retired or played his last year, I said, "You don't know what you're going to miss the most about being gone." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "It's not meal money." I said, "What you're going to miss is knowing at the end of the day whether you won or lost." And a couple of years later, we were bird hunting again in the middle of the winter, and he said, "You know, you were right. That's what I miss the most about playing."
Yeah. So what led you to Bowling Green and Western Kentucky?
Well, when I was at the Banner, I had 120 high schools in Middle Tennessee. Everything out of the NIL that I covered was responsible for. But I also had 7 colleges, Belmont, Lipscomb, Austin Peay, Middle Tennessee, Tennessee Tech, and Western Kentucky. So I was familiar with the coaches and other personnel at all of those schools. And the job came open at Western, and they mentioned it. I contacted them, and we interviewed, and it went on from there.
They had a very long history of successful athletics, particularly in basketball.
Yes, Mr. Diddle had been the coach there for over 30 years, and they had been right in the middle of everything in college basketball. They'd been to the NIT several times and into the NCAA several times, or the NCAA, as Mr. Diddle used to call it. But they had a very good program.
I first became familiar with Western Kentucky when I was a child. They had a player named Tom Marshall who was from Mount Juliet. And my great aunt ran the bank in Mount Juliet. So when I visited her one time, and Western Kentucky was coming to Mount Juliet to play an exhibition game, primarily because it was Tom Marshall's hometown. And I remember watching that game and watching him play, and this was back in the 40s, I'm sure, maybe the late 40s, I'm not sure. But he went to Western Kentucky, was an All-American there for 2 years.
Yes, and he went on into pro ball, played at Cincinnati, had a great career.
And just passed away, I think, last year at the age of 93.
Yes, I think that's about right. Mr. Diddle was asked several times to say whether Tom Marshall or Clem Haskins was the greatest player he ever coached. He would never make a choice.
So did you ever see Marshall play?
No, I did not. Pro ball wasn't on television. Well, there wasn't any television in those days. So, no, I never got to see him play.
But you did see Clem Haskins, and you saw Jim McDaniels, and saw some of those great players that came on after him.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I was so privileged to be with some great personalities and very talented players.
When I was in Jackson, again, referring back to a little past history, I was broadcasting games for Union, your old school, and we scheduled Western Kentucky. And I don't know why Coach Henry did that, but we went to Bowling Green and played Western. They had a freshman named Jim McDaniels, who at 7 feet tall would bring the ball down the floor. And they had us like 35 at the half and beat us by 35. I think they just took it easy on us in the second half. But I remember Jim McDaniels very well, and what a great athlete he was.
Well, actually, Mac was only 6'11", but he had all kinds of talent. A great jump shooter, and either he or Clem Haskins, if the three-point shot had been in vogue in those days, their scoring would have been out of sight.
Yeah. And Clem Haskins, and I remember seeing him play when Western would play Middle Tennessee here. And, boy, what a smooth player he was.
He impressed me always as he played basketball the way Joe DiMaggio played baseball. It looked like it was so easy and smooth, and he just glided from one place to another. And he had that same ability to make everything look easy.
So you were the SID when Western went to the Final Four.
Yes, that was in '71. A lot of things happened that year. One was we got to play the University of Kentucky, which had never happened before. We played them in the regional at Atlanta. No, take it back. At the University of Georgia. And it was not really a contest. They could not stay on the court with Western at that time. They just didn't have the talent. And then Western played Ohio State in the regional finals, won that game in overtime, and went to the Final Four at the Astrodome in Houston. Not a good seat in the house.
Right. I've seen football there, but I can imagine trying to watch a basketball game there.
The court was set up, raised from the floor behind where second base would normally be. So even if you were on press row, you could not see the ball hit the floor on the far side of the court. And my wife, I went and sat with her after the night we played in the consolation game after losing to Villanova in double overtime in the semifinals. And she had a seat in the upper deck over third base, and you could not read the numbers on people's jerseys.
So after you finished at Western, how many years were you at Western?
16 years.
And what precipitated you coming to Murfreesboro?
Well, I was in private business for about 5 years in between, and of course, I already knew all the people here, and Jimmy Earl was the AD, and he contacted me, and we talked, and I wound up here.
Well, when I started broadcasting here in '81, basketball and football, I think Ed Arning was the SID at that. And I say SID, that means Sports Information Director, for those of you who don't know the jargon. But and you came in shortly after I started, I believe.
I came in New Year's Day, 1983. Yeah. We had a basketball game that night, and I'd never hosted one in this gym, so it was an adventure.
Sports Information Director in those days was basically a one-man job. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, it got to be beyond one man because it kept adding, particularly women's sports. There was more and more to do and less to do it with. And almost everybody was running a one-man show at that time, but and our budget was small compared to a lot of other places, but we still had to get the job done. So it was about probably during football and basketball season, probably a 70-hour-a-week job.
And basically a one-man job. I think you did have some interns later coming in. I remember how excited you were when you got an intern.
Well, we had student help, and the first, I guess you would call him assistant, but we couldn't officially call him an assistant. He was a part-time employee, so we had to fire him every June 30th and hire him back on July 1st.
And who was that? I hope I'm not asking you something you don't remember.
You're asking me names now that I'm trying to pull up. But Jim, or the last name escapes me. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That was a trick question anyway. I shouldn't have asked you that. But after you moved to Middle Tennessee, what did you notice as the main difference in the either the communities or the programs, something like that?
Well, the communities were very, very similar, both growing towns that were growing very rapidly, and the schools also were growing very rapidly, and the expansion was one of the things that I guess was that you had to deal with. I remember when I first started coming to Murfreesboro, when I was at the Banner to cover high school games, there probably, I would guess, 15,000 people here maybe, and went to we had more than 15,000 in school when I came down here to work. So it was just different, and we had to cope with that change all the time, although we didn't really have the facilities to do that with easily. We just had to make do the best way we could.
You were at Western in some of their glory years in basketball, and at Middle in some of Middle's glory years. NCAA tournament games, football playoffs with Boots Donnelly, and so forth. So you've been blessed.
Yes. Well, I've been blessed all my life. I tell people that I was blessed because I was able to spend my life working at something that I really enjoyed. That's a privilege that a lot of people don't have.
Well, that's true, and I've heard people say, it was like they were paying me to do something that I would have done anyway.
Well, maybe, but the things we had to do, you better get paid what you can because you're not going to be able to do anything else.
So at Middle, and I remember you worked with me on radio on that triple overtime game at Indiana State when Middle Tennessee advanced in the playoffs by nosing out a trick play right at the end of the game.
Yes, and I'll never forget that they had a fan standing by their bench, and when that play happened, he just keeled completely over, fell on his backside. Because he was amazed at what had happened.
They tried to pull a trick play, and the Raiders were able to sniff it out and went on to win, advanced in the playoffs. I'm talking with Ed Gibbon, retired sports information director at both Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. And we'll be back, Chip Walters, as the Blue Raider Sports Report coming up, and we'll finish up right after this on All Sports Talk on WGNS.
Jennings and Ayers Funeral Home has served Murfreesboro families with compassion and care since 1880. As a family-owned funeral home, we're committed to honoring every life with dignity through traditional services, cremation options, and pre-planning that gives you peace of mind. For over 140 years, we've been here when it matters most. Visit JenningsandAyers.com. Jennings and Ayers Funeral Home, honoring life and comforting families since 1880.
Hi, this is Nick Hayes with Toots Restaurants, and we want to thank you for 40 great years of good food and fun.
At Toots, we still have the same specials, the same quality, the same portion sizes, even after 40 years.
And we have the best kids menu in town.
And our family would like to thank this community for supporting Toots for 40 years.
Thank you for dining with us since 1985.
Thank you, Rutherford County.
Thank you for dining with us for 40 years.
Stones River Manor offers assured care.
It's so warm and welcoming.
Independent living.
What states have you lived in?
Lived in Illinois and here. My husband worked for Quick Growth.
Assisted living.
I have my own place and I love it. The Activity Center has the Bible study that I like very much.
Adult daycare and respite care, and specialized physical rehabilitation care.
I love the friendliness and the family attitude that they have here.
Visit them online at stonesrivermanor.com or stop by. They're near the intersection of Haynes Drive and Memorial Boulevard.
Whether you need general vehicle upkeep and maintenance or a complete vehicle overhaul, Hall's Auto Care is here for you. We're locally owned and operated by Greg Hall and have been in business since 2014. You'll get excellent service and trustworthy advice with Hall's Auto Care. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. We're ready to help get you safely on the road. Hall's Auto Care, 907 Ridgely Road, just off Broad Street behind Chili's. Online at hallsautocare.net. Hall's Auto Care.
It's All Sports Talk from the Good Neighbor Network, FM 1019, 100.5, AM 1450, wgnsradio.com, and Big G TV.
Welcome back into All Sports Talk on this Monday. Dick Palmer with Ed Gibbon, retired sports information director at Middle Tennessee and earlier at Western Kentucky. And Ed, here at Middle Tennessee, I remember the first office you had. It was about like a closet, and it when did it all expand a little bit for you, and you were able to get some help?
Well, probably the last 3 years or so that I was here, there was more student help available, and we wound up with a second office that gave us a little expansion ability. But actually, after I left, just before the football program stepped up a notch, I thought about staying a year longer, but I said, no, it's not worth it. So when I left, the university began to hire enough people to do the job that it had become during the course of my tenure here.
So when you stepped down, what did you do to occupy your time then? Because you'd been used to working, as you say, 60, 70 hours a week.
Well, for one thing, I started building custom furniture for people. And I'd always done some of that, but I began to do more and more and enjoyed it. My dad taught me a lot of the things that I needed to know, and I really enjoyed that.
You have been a lifelong baseball fan, and I know your first love was with the Cardinals. You still follow baseball?
Yeah, to some extent, but when I was growing up, or you were growing up, baseball was a poor man's sport. The first major league game I saw was the St. Louis Browns against the Chicago White Sox at Old Sportsman's Park in St. Louis. We had grandstand seats behind first base at $1.85 a ticket. And now you're talking about over $100 just to get in the park anywhere.
At least, yeah. And I know you also were fairly close to Memphis and would get down there and watch the Memphis Chicks play.
Yes, and during the post-war years, 46, 7, 8, 9, Nashville and Memphis fought each other all year long, almost every year, for the Southern League pennant. So anytime Nashville came to Memphis to play the Chicks, my dad and I would go to at least 2 games during the series. And a lot of times we had to cheat and leave church when we started the invitation hymn and jump in the car and drive for an hour like madmen to get to Memphis. We'd pull up in front of the park. I'd jump out, get the scoreboard, the scorecard, the tickets, and 2 hot dogs, 2 Cokes. Dad would park the car. And usually we were there so late for a Sunday doubleheader, we had to sit on the grass behind first base. And got to see a lot of things in the dugout that the fans didn't normally see.
Who were some of your favorite players growing up, not only in major leagues, but maybe in the Southern League?
Well, everybody in Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, Mississippi, we got the Cardinal games on the radio. And so Stan Musial was the idol for every player growing up, and we tried to stand in the batter's box like he did, which we couldn't do. But he was a phenomenon, not only as a player, but as a human being. I learned some things from Bob Bragg, who was the writer from the St. Louis paper who covered the Cardinals. And I got to talk with him a couple of times during the later years. And he told stories about Stan Musial. And, for example, one day as they left the ballpark going to the lot where the players' cars were parked, a fan stopped Musial to try ask him for his autograph. And his wife was with him, and they were late to an appointment somewhere that she was interested in. So when the fan came up, she got in front of him and said, "Later, please, later." And so Bragg said that Musial signed the autograph and said when they got in the car, he turned around to his wife and said, "Don't you ever put your hands on one of my fans again."
Well, did you ever get to see any games at the old Sulphur-Dell ballpark in Nashville?
Oh, yeah, a lot of games. When I was playing at UT, when we played Vanderbilt, we'd go to the games at Sulphur-Dell if the Vols were at home. And I saw Harmon Killebrew hit 4 home runs in one game there one night. And they were 450 to 500-foot shots.
Yeah. He hit a few up in the big leagues after that, didn't he?
Yes, he did, and he was quite a player.
Well, a lot has changed, Ed, in the years since you've been in the business. A lot has changed in the newspaper business. And do you miss getting a newspaper and just having a cup of coffee and perusing the newspaper?
Well, I did for a while, but that's past. It's something you just get used to. All things change. I remember, probably in 1942 or 3, in the middle of World War II, my dad every morning got the paper and scanned it during breakfast. And one morning it just flashed in my head, and I said, "Daddy," I said, "what did they put in the paper when there's no war?" Because I had no idea. I couldn't imagine there being enough news to fill up a newspaper there wasn't a war going on.
Well, and sometimes I wonder about that too. But changes in the newspaper business, changes in baseball, changes in college athletics, and it's just all too much to comprehend at times.
Well, change is hard to live with, and the longer you live, the harder it is to live with. And I've been around, well, maybe not long enough yet, but I'm 91 years old, and I've seen a lot of things change. And sometimes they change for the better, and many times they change for worse. And I don't know who decides that, but it's something that everybody has to live with because things are going to change.
You, in addition to everything we've talked about here, and we've got about another minute or so left, you were also an avid outdoorsman, enjoyed hunting and fishing, and you and I have been on a lot of fishing excursions together.
Well, I was able to keep on fishing because if we had a slack time, it was in the summer. Once I became a sports writer and then an SID, I had to quit hunting because that was the wrong time of year. There was no chance to go. I loved duck hunting. But from the time I left Jackson to come to Nashville, I have not been in a duck blind since.
I think most people, particularly in West Tennessee, close to the river, were really avid duck hunters, and there was a lot of water down there, and access to good spots to shoot duck.
Oh, you could go almost anywhere in the Mississippi River bottom. You'd find a lake or a river, and the ducks were flying up and down that flyway from about late September until early March usually, but the season wasn't that long. But there were ducks there. And I remember one year, Daddy and I went so often that we gave away 100 ducks for a supper at church that we had killed over the season.
Well, you've lived a good, long life, and I'm happy that I've been able to know you and work with you at times, and I appreciate you coming on tonight, and certainly wish you the best. I've been talking with Ed Gibbon, retired sports information director at Middle Tennessee, and Ed, appreciate it. We might do this again later.
Be my pleasure.
That's all sports talk for today. This is Dick Palmer. Thank you so much for listening.
Sign-ups are going on right now for First Shot's Winter Basketball League in Rutherford County. Coach Andy Herzer guides kids to sharpen basketball skills and build teamwork through exciting clinics and games. Since 2003, First Shot has empowered youth to grow in mind, spirit, and body. Don't miss out. Join the fun and develop lifelong skills. Visit FirstShotTN.org today and register for the Winter Basketball League. That's FirstShotTN.org.
This is Chip Walters, and I'm honored to be your 2024 MTAR Realtor of the Year. I'm with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates, and like many of you, I've seen the real estate market shift and change. People often ask, Chip, what's really going on? Well, that's a great question, and I believe in answering with solid, factual data. So let's cut through some of the noise. I invite you to reach out. Let's have a conversation about your real estate goals and the current market trends in your neighborhood. You can find all my contact information at choosechip.net.
When we started our flagship restaurant on Broad Street, who would have known we'd have grown and touched each four corners of Rutherford County? Now we have locations in South Murfreesboro, Smyrna, West Murfreesboro, and the original on 860 Northwest Broad Street.
Swing by one of our 4 locations after a game for some good food and fun.
Thank you, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and Rutherford County.
Thank you to our patrons and customers.
Thank you.
Good food and fun. Get old. Old National Bank, that is. Old National Bank has the experience and service you need to buy a home, make investments, even online and mobile banking. Old National Bank is in the borough on Dr. Martin Luther